The flame in our name
is to shine a light onto the pathways of recovery,
which will build a bridge from dependence to independence
for the individual caught in the shadows of addiction
and looking for a way out. Yeah, hi everyone. Thanks for that, Lindsay. As was Lindsay discussed in the opening section of the today's programme, we are now joined by Joe Schofield. Schofield or Schofield, Joe?
Schofield's good.
Schofield,
yeah, cool.
Right? Okay, I'll get it right. Yeah, so Joe is a research coordinator with the University of Stirling, and also works with the Drugs Research Network in Scotland. I met Joe last year sometime, I think it was, when you were conducting out a research on the use of, I'll pass it to you. Maybe you can remind us what it was you were researching at that point.
Yeah, hi Dermot. I popped up to Aberdeen last year to meet some people from Aberdeen in recovery to get views on a project we were looking to do around the use of technology in preventing drug deaths. A quick update on that is we got some really helpful feedback from Aberdeen in Recovery members. We submitted some funding to a funding application to the Scottish Government, and we've now received funding to do a pilot project in Aberdeen.
Amazing.
And that's looking at, can we use wearable devices to monitor the health of people who use drugs as they've used them, and hopefully reduce drug-related deaths by detecting the onset of overdose. So that project will be starting later this year as soon as lockdown's lifted, and I'd be very happy to maybe speak to you and your members in future and let you know how that's going.
Absolutely. That congratulations on the success of the first research project and then the follow-on funding. And it's amazing that you're getting the opportunity to pilot that.
Yep.
We will once we get nearer the point of that being launched, we can maybe get you up again on maybe a Zoom rather than you having to travel all the way from Edinburgh on the train.
Cool.
And we can do another little session and let the people know a little bit more about that project, because it was sounding like something that could save lives. Yeah.
Lovely, happy to.
Great stuff. Okay, so Joe is joined us today to give us a little bit of information on a second research project that is being conducted just now. And as some of our listeners will be aware, or may not be aware, sadly to say, there is quite dangerous levels and certainly availability of benzodiazepines in Scotland. I was speaking with some guys last week. We're a team of chaps that were all involved in the recovery field, building recovery communities. And a chap made the comment that Scotland is awash with illicit benzodiazepine. And it's certainly a problem that is growing and doesn't seem to get the same media coverage as some of the other illicit substances that are so readily bandied about on press and media. So I won't try to kid you on and let you know that I know plenty of everything, because I don't. So I'll pass it over to an expert. And Joe, do you want to give us a little bit of an idea of the project and the reasons behind it, etc.?
Yeah, thanks, Dermot. So exactly as you say, we know that a lot of people use benzos in Scotland, including those that weren't prescribed for them. So either diverted, where they've been prescribed to somebody else who might give you a wee strip, or purchased on the street, what we call illicit benzos. And recent estimates suggest that around 50% of people who've got problem drug use in Scotland use benzos, either sometimes alone, but most often in combination with other drugs. And we know that because benzos, they depress the central nervous system. So on the one hand, they cause relaxation, which is a benefit that some people seek, but the risk there is they can cause relaxation and depression of the nervous system, and that can slow down breathing and heart rate. And so we're increasingly seeing benzos implicated in drug-related deaths.
Yeah.
So yeah, we know that in 2018, of the roughly 1,200 people who unfortunately had a drug-related death, benzodiazepines were found in almost 4 out of 5 cases, 920 people. So we're seeing drug-related deaths being driven by benzodiazepine use. And of all those people who died with a benzo in the system, half of them had what we call a prescribable benzo, so something that you might be able to get from the GP, which could be diverted and sold on. But really worryingly, 3/4 of those people who died with a benzo had what we call a street benzo, so something like itizolam, which is a benzo that's not prescribable here. So we know that a large number of people who die are getting benzos purely through the street market rather than prescribed from the GP.
Yeah, yeah. And that's obviously statistics you can pull from the data that's coming, being compiled, yeah. And it's an absolute tragedy that the deaths are still continuing, and to have that, to have a family member dying in these circumstances is that there's no, can only offer compassion, because unless you're actually living and being experiencing that, there's no actually, it's hard to empathize unless you've been in that circumstance. But I think equally as important, and which has to be recognized, is beyond the actual deaths, these benzodiazepines are causing endless amounts of emotional pain, mental pain, physical damage, and you know that it's massive. It is really massive. So anything, everything that can be done to make inroads into how to treat this differently, I think can only be a benefit. We're chatting just before we started earlier that you were looking into having involving professionals, prescribers in your research. Do you want to touch a little bit on that?
Yeah, sure. So this project we've got, you just highlighted a really important point, which is about treatment options. So we know a lot of people are going to be using benzos, sometimes to help them deal with physical or emotional pain, sometimes to help them sleep, or to cope with withdrawal from other drugs. So people, I think, are taking benzos sometimes to self-medicate, and then sometimes because they're actually dependent on the drugs. And you mentioned about treatment options. And the reason we're doing this work is I think everyone knows there's a lot of benzos around. Everyone knows that they're causing harm. What seems to be missing is how can we best treat and support people who do use benzos as to help them into recovery. So if someone's dependent on heroin, you can offer them medication-assisted treatment, so methadone or buprenorphine, with some psychological support and social support. And we know that works and helps people into recovery. We don't really have those options for benzos.
No.
So this project that we're doing, our goal is to inform the development of addiction and treatment and care and support services so they can meet the needs of people who use benzos. And the project's in 2 parts. The first part that's just coming to an end has been an online survey of people who prescribe within addiction services. So we've had 51 responses from GPs, nurses, pharmacists, psychiatrists who prescribe in addictions, asking for their views. And I won't go into too much detail on what they're saying because it might influence the follow-on work. But yeah, we're keen to ask prescribers and those medical experts what they think people need and what they think could help. Crucially, we also want to ask people who use benzos, who are the experts in their needs and care, what do you want? What would help you? What would help people in your situation? So at the end of the project, we can pull together 2 lots of info, a survey of addiction medics and nurses, and interviews with people who use benzos, and that'll help us say the professionals can see these suggested ways forward, and people who use drugs have got these views and concerns and suggestions. How can we bring the 2 of them together to develop better treatment and support for people?
Yeah, and I think that is absolutely amazing, and I can only applaud your approach. And it's certainly everything that AIR and its members and nationally the recovery movement, the recoverists, everyone involved are so keen to further and progress this collective approach. And what you've described is where we'll find alternate ways of treating drugs and addiction in all its forms and manifestations. If we can have that input from both sides, we have a more open-ended viewpoint, and from that that collective information, I think we can get strident opportunities to do it differently, which is can only be good. Can only be good.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've spoke about the professionals being involved, and I do know that you have been making some interviews with people who have personal experience of benzodiazepine use. So how's that progressing? I know you have made some inroads into that.
Yeah, we've so far done around 10 interviews with people who use benzos across Edinburgh and Glasgow and some of the outlying central belt areas. I'm really grateful to Aberdeen in Recovery. I know you've already been promoting the survey to members and people who might want to participate in Aberdeen. And so at the end of this, we'll have conducted probably around 15, 30 to 45 minute long interviews with people. So yeah, when we produce the final report, we'll have some really rich views from people who've been at the sharp end and advising policymakers and providers on how we as a society can better meet the needs of those people.
Great, Joe, great. And I don't know, but I picked up earlier on that you guys, you haven't actually been funded to do this. This is you guys getting together and doing this work from your own passion base.
Yeah, like most voluntary sector services, drugs research, there's a huge number of people in Scotland really committed to it. Unfortunately, because of the way it works, generally projects only happen if you're able to get funding to make them happen. So we tried a couple of times to get funding for this project. We were up against big competition, didn't get the funds, which was a shame, but we were so committed to doing something at Stirling about the issue of benzos, and the Drugs Research Network has got people who use drugs and clinicians and policymakers and academics involved, and we've got a group who said benzos are such a big issue, we can't wait to do this work until we get funding to do a big old singing, dancing project. So we're doing it in our own time because there's such a big need.
And on a personal level, I applaud you and your colleagues, but also from my heart, I thank you for devoting the time to conduct a research project, because I think it's badly needed, and it's an avenue that that requires more investigation into how it can be approached, and hopefully support mechanisms put in place that are more attuned to the drug of choice rather than the addiction cycle. Because as you stated at the start of our chat here, there are alternates that can be prescribed that offer safer options to opiate use. There's also like medications that can be used in regards problematic alcohol use, but in regards the benzodiazepines, there's so many people prescribe these for treatment of mental health issues that, you know, there is a difficulty unless we can get that way of being able to offer an alternate or a process, a reduction process with through regulated prescriptive use.
Yeah,
so,
totally.
So, I can only thank you for giving us your time today, and hopefully once you have your results back, we'll be able to get together, have a discussion, and know that AIR and all our resources will be behind you and your project. And then hopefully we can get you back up again and do a follow-on today's chat.
Really grateful to you and everyone at AIR for the support and your messages of support. Very happy to share updates on progress and the final report with you. And I'd be extremely happy to come back and speak to yourself and some of your members who want to discuss the findings.
Excellent, Joe. Well, you enjoy the rest of your day, and I'm sure we'll catch up very soon. Thanks
very much, Dermot.